Hey guys, Mark Allen, BHSpringSolutions LLC and BHSpringSolutions.com. Back again, another session of High Power University, and this is our special sessions, the review of the Girsan MC P35. And at the end of 1,250 rounds, and this is what we are doing now, is our 1,250 round review. At the end of 1,250 rounds, we were correcting a malfunction, and the malfunction looked like this. We would be empty on a magazine, put in a loaded magazine, hit the slide stop, and this was, with the original slide stop or any slide stop, hit the slide stop, and the slide would come forward just, I don't know, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, a very small amount, and it would get hung up, would not go all the way forward. We would grab the slide and slingshot it, and in our shooting on the day we did the 500 rounds, you'll notice in there numerous times the slide stop was hit. You hear the metal go forward and a click sound, but the slide doesn't go home. But again, we could grab the slide, slingshot it, and it always went home. So we knew it wasn't something that was really, something that was off by much, but we did want to investigate it and figure it out. So we had a couple of clues when we started investigating this. We had a couple of things that were little hints about what was going on. One of those hints I'm going to show you right here, hopefully. Right there. See right there on the edge of the breech, even though it's very dirty. Right on the edge of the breech, it looks like something has been, you can see it. It's actually in a couple of places if we get it right there in the angle of the light. That part of the breech was running into the back of the magazine. In other words, when the slide was going forward, that bottom of the breech area here was catching enough of the top of the magazine here so it wouldn't go forward, or at least that's kind of the the theory. And we also had started noticing and picking up, and this is almost too subtle to see, but you can feel it, and it's right in the middle of the magazine, about where that middle area of the breech would be that I just showed you. And several of our test magazines have got, you can run your fingernail right there. It's a little, like, it feels like an imperfection, and what that is where the breech was running into that part. So we confirmed it by, we went ahead and took an FN, and I had a suspicion that the back of that magazine was running too high in the Girsan. So I grabbed this Browning, and the measurement I wanted to take was this one right here. I wanted to see from the top of the ejector right to the top of the magazine right there, and in the Browning, the top of the magazine is 5.45 millimeters below the top of the ejector. And then in the Girsan, we went ahead and we took the same measurement, and just like that, and we're at 4.89. So what is that, half to 0.5, 0.6-ish of a millimeter, that the back of the magazine is riding higher, and it's just enough to catch the bottom part of the breech area. So when we started looking at everything, the magazine release in the Girsan is not the problem. This is not a component problem. This is a positioning of the hole that the magazine release goes into that is off, and that is causing the magazines to ride too high. And it doesn't matter. A Browning OEM magazine catch, the RDIH magazine catch, or the Girsan magazine catch. And the symptom of this, the kind of the giveaway was, you kind of expect on your, if you hear that, you kind of expect to have a little bit of margin right there. But in the Girsan, when I would put the magazine all the way up in the grip frame, it was flat flush against the grip frame, and there was no margin like I just showed you, that little bit of margin at the bottom of the magazine base plate relative to the frame. So anyway, we took the magazine release, and it goes into the pistol from the left side here. Here's your right side. There is the fit area. And what we basically had to do is we had to take about a 1/2 millimeter of thickness of material right off of the catch part. And that's the part of the magazine release that catches the magazine. So we went ahead and made the adjustment so that the magazine would so that the magazine would not ride quite so high. And we're going to go ahead, and by the way, you see now we've got more of a little bit of margin there, just like in the Browning. And we'll go ahead and we'll get us our measurement again here at the same place, the top of the ejector to the top of the back of the magazine. And now I'm measuring that at 5.45 on the Girsan, and I think that's pretty comparable to the measurement we got on the Browning. After we made that adjustment, after we made that fitting, we never had a hang up of the slide going forward again. And every time we loaded a fresh magazine, hit the slide stop, and again and again and again, never had a hang up. And basically what we did is we got the height of the magazine comparable to what the height of the magazine would be in a FN or a Browning or like any of the clones. And that business of the slide hanging up on the back of the magazine at that point is cleared up. So it's not a difficult thing, but the implication here is it's not the part. It is the location of the hole, but you can't move the hole. It is where it is. So any ambi-mag catch, any replacement component that you use for the magazine release in the Girsan, it's if it's a component made for an FN Browning high power, it will need that fitting touch. Okay, next we're going to go to the complete review of the first 1250 rounds of the Girsan MC P35 next. Okay, guys, we are at the 1250 rounds of testing, update and review summary for the Girsan MC P35 high power. And this is just a summary. Early in our testing, we noted that we weren't getting anything like decent accuracy out of the Girsan barrel. So we put a BH advanced barrel in, and accuracy became very, very strong. We actually have plans to do some additional testing with that Girsan barrel, and we'll be showing that to you in some upcoming sessions. But we really want to validate, what we found there, and certainly the experience we've had shooting the Girsan in the last several hundred rounds has been really strong, very, very, very excellent as far as the accuracy is concerned. We did note that the trigger lever and the magazine disconnect spring, we made a note about that. It was not positioning correctly. BH Springs resolved that. Made a note about the extractor spring as well. We felt like the BHSpringSolutions design of our optimized extractor spring was a better application in the Girsan. We did replace all other coil wire springs, and we have a summary of how and why we chose to do that. Note about the trigger pin. The Girsan's trigger pin design is really good for 1 or 2 ins and outs, and that's about it. And it's going to be loose and can be pressed in and out by fingers. So we replaced that with a BH Advanced self-tightening trigger pin for high powers. The safety lever pin, it started walking out of the ambicide safety lever. BHSpringSolutions safety lever pin resolved that. We did notice what we classified as a defect in the recoil spring guide rod and the positioning of the detent ball in the recoil spring guide rod. We replaced that with the BH Advanced Recoil Buffering recoil spring guide rod. The slide stop, the OEM slide stop, did not fit correctly in the frame, and we did likewise replace that. The sear spring, this was an interesting one because we really didn't know exactly why we were getting these sometimes in the threes, 4.5 average trigger brake weight. That traced right back to the Girsan's sear spring. And we've elected to replace that out and give ourselves a little more trigger resistance and a little more authoritative reset as well. We think it'll balance the pistol a little bit better. And then we did make that adjustment to the magazine catch, so the magazine positioning in the frame would be correct, so that the slide could proceed forward, not get tangled up on the back of the installed magazine. The components in the Girsan that at this point, based on their performance and inspection after 1,250 rounds, and based on the known hardness values of the components, these suggest that the following OEM components may provide long-lasting and correct function. That would be the hard parts in the trigger subassembly, the fire control group, including the sear hammer assembly and the ambi safety assembly, with the replacement of that one pin, of course. The slide small parts, including the extractor, the Type 2 sear lever, and the firing pin. The original sights that were replaced with Meprolite night sights, and no alteration of the dovetail was required for that. However, it does leave a mark on the top of the slide, that front sight does, when you press that sight out and replace it with something else. So the ramp on that front sight kind of gets you a refinish or just a little bit of ugliness there on top of the slide. And we think the original grip panels and the original grip screws also are fine. Because of the reputation for fracture of the firing pin retaining plate, and because of the hardness value that we measured on the ejector, we don't have any expectations of longevity for these specific parts at this time. I think another one we could add in this list here of the competent components. The magazine catch would be one after it's been fitted to the hole place, to its hole placement in the frame. It also is a competent part. Also in our review, and I think this will be available at BHSpringSolutions.com, you're going to note that after 1,250 rounds, we completed our entire inspection process that we have in the BH Custom Shop Service Department, and just the notes about everything that we found and why, and the specifics about that. You'll note the components and the service recommendations that we would have for a Girsan if it tested out exactly like the one that we have been evaluating. And then finally in the report, you see the circled parts and those things that we found as concerns that we did in fact replace. And then the last thing in the report, we did include the comparisons of the hardness amounts for the Girsan and for the Springfield SA35, and just as a reference and for how those compare. So this is our review at the 1,250 round point, and we are going to be taking the testing of the Girsan in an entirely different direction from here. We do have more shooting coming up, and we're going to be including some things that are going to be very new, and as part of some testing protocols ongoing with some other components. So we hope you'll join us for our future sessions. This is our 1,250 round update for BHSpringSolutions evaluation and testing of the Girsan MC P35 high power. I'm Mark Allen for BHSpringSolutions LLC and BHSpringSolutions.com. Our special sessions of evaluation of the Girsan MC P35 as part of BH High Power University. Thanks for watching, folks. Okay, we had a couple of other things we wanted to point out in the Girsan. One here is the reason we are recommending our roll pin replacement kit in the Girsan. If you're going to be doing any work at all to it, you're going to see the right side safety lever roll pin. That's works its way out during shooting, and so that that is a replacement necessary item. There's another thing that we ran into, and this is a fairly significant thing, really. We're going to go ahead and take the fire control group out real quickly. And we've been working with this 4-pound trigger pull that sometimes breaks in the 3s. Then sometimes it's a little higher than 4.5, but it's been roaming around that 4.5 part. And what we tracked it down to was this Girsan sear spring. When you put a Browning OEM factory sear spring, the 4-pound trigger pull goes to 7.5 to 8. When you put in the BH Advanced sear spring Type 2, 7.5, 8-pound range is very predictable. You cut about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds off of that with the optimized BH Advanced sear spring. But this is a very different design sear spring. Specifically, this area where it mounts, it causes the spring to put less pressure on the sear, and there's very little arc or none in the spring itself. So we will be replacing out that spring in the sessions coming up, and as we will be installing our SFS system as part of our ongoing testing. But we wanted to point out that sear spring, that is a different amount of pressure, less pressure, much less pressure on the sear than we've seen before. A sear, of course, must remain stable in the high power for it to not be a full auto handgun. So anyway, those are a couple things that we also wanted to point out here at the 1250 round update.